We are live. Good morning on Forging the Falcons here. I'm Scott Kennedy, and this is Nick Kendall, my co-host. I am in Atlanta. Nick is in Seattle, so we are co-hosting from coast to coast. On this show in the mornings, we like to talk a lot. On Wednesday mornings, we like to talk a lot of overall NFL stuff and then how it impacts the Atlanta Falcons. So if you're a fan of another team, I promise you will still find stuff that will interest you. And if not, ask, and we'll make up something that will interest you. So, Nick, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. Getting tired of the house hunting search for rentals, but is what it is, and it's a blue sky this morning, so doing pretty well, and also excited to make the long flight, hoping that the flight doesn't get canceled to Chicago tomorrow morning for a wedding, one of the many
Oh, yeah,
weddings
you're
this
in the
year.
middle of wedding season, aren't you?
Yep, it's kicking off tomorrow, so shout out to my buddy Alex and his bride to be Allie. Hope we'll see you Friday, but yep, got to make that trek from Seattle to Chicago. One of many trips to the Midwest this year for weddings.
That sounds like a United flight to me.
Alaska.
Alaska. Okay. That
Mm,
was one of the benefits of living in Atlanta was you were pretty much direct to everywhere
yeah.
with with the Delta hub here. So that was kind of nice. I The strangest thing, I was platinum on Delta for 10 years. I
Mm.
haven't been in a plane in over 2 years. So I think January of 2020 was the last time I was in a plane, and then everything shut down. And most of the stuff that I go to is within driving distance now, so
Yeah.
I don't have to go as many places. But a couple of things we wanted to get into today. I think we talked a little last week about Grady Jarrett's extension, but we
Yep.
can touch on that again. We can hit on a little Mike Davis to the Baltimore Ravens, but one of the things that interests me because I want to tie it into predicted finish also is Todd McShay came out with his way too early NFL mock draft, and there's like 3 paragraphs of like explaining. I know it's too early. I know these are going to be wrong, but hey, 10 of these guys were in the first round last year. 5 of them were top 10 picks. And I've given McShay enough grief that when he's doing something right, I need to say so. And part of that was the Drake London pick at wide receiver. He was all
Mm.
over that pretty early. I think he had Jamison Williams there early, but then he pivoted to Drake London, and then he must have heard too much of my stuff because he changed like the week of the draft and went away from wide receiver. I'm like, yes, yes. It was too late at that point. The damage had been done. But Nick, in this one, he came out with his mock draft, and the thing that's interesting to me when I'm looking at these is not just who they're taking, but where. Where are they being taken? Now, a lot of these guys have just kind of taken the easy road and done reverse Super Bowl odds. But McShay has the Falcons picking number 5 overall in the draft, and that means 4 and 13, 3 and 14, somewhere in that neighborhood. And they he has them taking Jalen Carter, the big defensive lineman from Georgia, which, if I'm not mistaken, should probably warm both of our hearts, assuming there's a quarterback in play already with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Carter, if you guys want to get your insides tingly watching some tape last season, Jalen Carter versus Kentucky was one of the most dominating performances I saw from any single player all season last year. And that he stood out looked different amongst the talent that they had on that Georgia defense, which
Which is
says
crazy
something
considering that they had, what, 4 first-round picks?
just on the defense. Yeah.
Yeah, just on the defense, including the number 1 overall, and the best
Yeah.
player still at Georgia.
Yep.
Yeesh,
Yeah.
scary. That's a little bit scary. And if you look at that, if you look at that his mock draft, for me there was no surprise in the top 2 spots. It was C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young to the Texans and the Lions, respectively, and then Will Anderson, defensive end of the Jets from Alabama, and then Jackson Smith. I'm not sure how to pronounce
In Jigba.
Njigba. Okay, just sound it out. There's no silence there. Njigba, wide receiver from Ohio State, and then Jalen Carter, the Falcons. The one that makes you scratch your head just a little bit is this next pick at number 6 to the Panthers, which is Anthony Richardson, quarterback, Florida. And I'm like, wait a minute now. I didn't watch Florida a lot, but their quarterback was awful. That was Emory Jones.
Mhm.
Emory Jones was not a good quarterback, certainly not a pro level quarterback by my
Yeah.
eyes anyway, in a short sample size. was like, but what about this guy? So I look up some stats. I'm like, well, he hasn't even played. How's he going to be, a top 10 pick overall? And McShay addresses that. He says this is a huge projection based on a lot of upside, but it could happen in the course of 1 year.
Yeah. Tools, tools, tools. Anthony Richardson, a very high dual rated recruit, I believe, ended up going to Florida and flashed a bit when he played. Needs to be more consistent, but he's one of those guys that has the raw makeup to become something. Now, obviously, quarterback is a position where accuracy, processing, decision making are king. But the fact that he has the frame, the athleticism, the natural arm talent means he's somebody that we can. I have no issue talking about right now, with the caveat that he could just as easily Spencer Rattler his way next season to returning to school or having to transfer,
Mhm.
as he could end up being a top 10 pick. So that's where we are in this process. The only bona fide quarterbacks right now, I would say, are the likes of CJ Stroud, the likes of Bryce Young. But after that, you got a heap of tools, guys, that are interesting. And that's what makes last year different than this upcoming year. Last year, if you didn't have, let's say this upcoming year, you didn't have Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, year to year, it'd be pretty similar. But you have that known quantity at the top that anything else is gravy to the additional class next year. So really should be a much better quarterback class. And there's always the unknown. We'll see if anybody can rise up and the season long process.
All right, let's before we get in farther, I want to say hello to the chat now that people are starting to come in a little bit. I put the tweet on Twitter, so hey, if you're following me on Twitter at Scout Kennedy, give us a retweet. Let people know that to come on in and find us and talk a little football. But Luke coming in here bright and early. He says, "Good morning, Nick and Scott." And Chelsea played today. Let's go. Chelsea does play today. This is probably my least favorite. No. The Pepto Bismol stripes were my least favorite of the kits. This is one of my least favorite kits. I didn't like. I was like, this is City's colors, not Chelsea colors.
Yeah.
But I have extraordinarily good luck wearing this one. And the Chelsea needs some. They need some points today. They need a win to close out this year. Get it over with. Ownership change. Move on. They need to get this one done. They need it today. Ethan, speaking of London. London is blue. Ethan is over in London, the DWI guys. It says, good morning, all. Michael Renquillo coming in. Says, good morning, Scott and Nick. I'm Forging the Falcons. Have a great show this morning. It's better already now that you're here. Appreciate you. Jeremy Sean, thanks for being in here as well. Christos Jenkins, morning, everyone. Can't see the schedule release tomorrow. That should be interesting as well. And EJ says, good morning, Nick and Scott. And anybody that says go Chelsea will get a turn response from me. I'm a little late with the coffee, so I just poured, so it's a little hot. You can play the let's find out when play the game of let's see when the coffee kicks in for Scott this morning. And probably we're at 8 minutes in right now, about 22 minutes, you'll probably be able to figure it out for sure. So we hit on this a little bit last week, Nick, but as some of the details of Grady Jarrett's extension have come out, it looks like basically a 2-year deal. This year you shave about $12 million off the salary cap. That's a good thing. And next year you're at a $20 million hit, dead cap hit. And then the year after that, you're back where you were this year, which is basically you can either pay him $20 million or you can release him for a $7 million cap hit. I said I like the move. The man is Chelsea is late. You'll be able to tell when the coffee kicks in. He is Falcons legacy. He's Falcons royalty, and he's everything you want in a player. He's a good teammate, hard worker, productive. Defensive line, those 300-pounders that can get in the backfield the way he can are tough to find. And he'd be a pretty good mentor for Jalen Carter if that was the way that the Falcons went next year.
Yeah, the Falcons picking top 5, I think, is not bold, but ending up 5 instead of 1 or 2 maybe is slightly bold. We'll see how it plays out. That'd be a testament to Arthur Smith, but you might actually be a little bit disappointed to end up at 5 rather than getting a shot at the quarterback. We'll see how it plays out. Or Will Anderson also. As much as I love Jalen Carter, that edge rusher is a little bit more translatable, a little more space to roam, more impactful in that way. So we'll see how it plays out. But
Falcons will pick 5 because those 4, the ones you really like. But sorry, let me, before I forget again, because I already have, one of the going back to the mock drafts and the quarterbacks, one of the CBS guys, I'll have to look it back up and give him a little credit, but he had Will Revis number 1 overall, a Kentucky quarterback. Now, is that possible? Do you see that as a possibility?
I mean, God, anything is possible,
But
right?
you know
Like
what I
that's
mean. If you're looking
yeah.
right now, does he look like a number 1 to you, or are the other guys ahead of him?
The other guys are well ahead of him, in my opinion. I like Will Levis's athleticism. I like Will Levis's arm talent, but he's not nearly quick enough processing wise, and his accuracy is a little bit more sporadic. He was a pretty darn good for Kentucky last season, but there's a difference between being a maybe a first round caliber prospect to being 1 overall, especially when you're talking about Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and how they looked. Now, that being said, there's been a little bit of runs on Ohio State and Alabama quarterbacks that might give some people some pause. Maybe they're so surrounded by great talent that it's easy for them. They don't really have to compensate. Where at Kentucky, where Will Levis is, he does have to, raise the level of play around him rather than vice versa. So we'll see how it plays out. I do like Will Levis, but I do not think I wouldn't say he's a there's other quarterbacks I like that are
Mhm.
actually more of a threat
Right.
to number 1 overall. The guy to keep an eye on is Tyler Van Dyke. That's a name that I would keep an eye on for the Miami Hurricanes. I think he's just a redshirt sophomore this upcoming year, but I think he's got a better shot than Will Levis.
And he's McShay has them going 8-9. Will Levis, I think I called him Revis a minute ago. I
Yep.
apologize. Revis. It's been a rough morning already. Will Levis, quarterback Kentucky, has him going number 8 to the New York Football Giants, and McShay has Tyler Van Dyke, quarterback Miami Hurricanes, going number 9 to the Seattle Seahawks. So, 2 teams. The Giants won't absolutely, and Billy Holman coming in saying like, sub, and share. Thank you so much, and good
Thanks,
morning,
Billy.
Billy. And then Joe Cannon coming in saying good morning as well. Good morning, Joe. Appreciate you being here. The Giants might be in market for a quarterback. They might not. I think there's a pretty good chance that the Seahawks will be in the market for a quarterback. They've got Geno Smith and Drew Lock. We'll see if one of those guys takes the bull by the horns this year, but I think they will be in the market for next year as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm curious to see what happens with Brian Dable and that Giants team. I think Mitch Trubisky just signed a 1-year contract with the Steelers, and Dable and Trubisky have apparently a pretty good relationship. So I wouldn't be shocked to see the Kenny Pickett era kick off in Pittsburgh and Trubisky work his way to New York, giving them another bridge season to that team. But you never know. We got to see. Who knows what quarterback's going to be available next year, where they're going to be picking, et cetera, et cetera. But it would make some sense. It does seem like Daniel Jones is on the way out. And again, I'm just bringing this back full circle, Broncos country wise. But Drew Lock didn't work out, but at least the Broncos didn't use the 8th overall pick on Drew Lock like the Giants did on the likes of Daniel Jones. And we won't talk about Dwayne Haskins because everything that happened there. But, they waited until pick 42 and took a swing on the quarterback. Didn't end up working out, but that's better than the 8th overall selection and more
you want
years
to
of
talk
waiting.
about, again, bad quarterback decision making.
Yeah.
For all of the ups and downs the Falcons have had the last 30 years, they've had pretty good quarterback play for most of my lifetime.
Yeah.
They've had competent quarterback play, from Steve Barkowski. Chris Chandler was damn good. Chris Miller was a pretty good quarterback. Michael Vick was really good. Even when they got Jeff George back, he wasn't bad. He was a solid quarterback. And then the ushers in the Matt Ryan era for, a third of my lifetime
Yeah.
of, 15 years, that the quarterback play has been pretty solid. We haven't had to see the awful quarterback play for the most part. There's been blips in there as a transition year. The Joey Harrington years, I didn't even remember him, to be completely honest with you. That was such a write-off year. I didn't even remember him. I go back and say, wait, who led the team in passing that year? The quarterback play has been okay. This is an interesting transition year that if the Falcons are sitting at 5, and they don't go for a quarterback, I can certainly understand going for a guy like Jalen Carter, but is there a chance Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder could take this spot? I think yes. I think Ridder has enough talent that he could end up being a long-term option. It's a gamble. I mean, it's not a high probability, but I do think it's possible. It's within the realm of possibility for sure.
Yep. And Michael corrected me here. Daniel Jones went 6, not 8. So memory a little off there. That was 2019 was a long time ago. A lot has happened since 2019. God. So thank you for keeping me on my toes there. You're definitely right. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Falcons. I think that there is a chance that Desmond Ridder specifically could take the bull by the horns and run with it. I'm just, having gone through the day 2 quarterback saga before and where the NFL game is going, where I don't think it's ever been easier to find competent quarterback play, which is why you need to chase ceilings, which is why you need to chase greatness. I mean, you could get Jimmy Garoppolo or Mike Baker Mayfield for practically nothing, and those guys are, if anything, competent quarterbacks. Maybe we can argue Baker Mayfield about the maturity and the mental makeup of being competent, but competent quarterbacks, you want to chase ceilings. And I think right now, Desmond Ridder being a third-round pick, everything that he's done, the inconsistency with accuracy sometimes, the processing, is that chasing a ceiling? Or is that, just settling for a rookie quarterback contract who's there, which is fine. I mean, that's definitely an avenue. It's just much more terminal than going after a demigod level quarterback.
And for him, I do like the ceiling.
Yeah.
He just has a lower floor because of the, and that was kind of how we're discussing Malik Willis and Desmond Ridder versus someone like Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett might not have the ceiling from a tools perspective, but he's got a higher floor than Willis and maybe Ridder as well. He just doesn't have, and he's not a bad athlete, don't get me wrong, but Ridder's 6'4", 4'5", and Malik Willis runs like a running back and can throw a ball through the wall. So that's when you are maybe chasing the ceiling, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just, it's the first time I think I've ever seen McShay not mock a wide receiver to the Falcons this early. And, we'll see. Plenty of time to change. But, I was certainly, I'd be happy with the Jalen Carter pick, but it surprised me a little bit that he didn't go quarterback in that spot, even if it happened to be Will Levis or Tyler Van Dyke. And you scroll down a little bit, I think there's even more. I think he thinks there's going to be 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round.
He had Anthony Richardson in there too. Did he end up getting Spencer Rattler in there also?
I would hope not. Scrolling all the way down. So he did not. So,
okay.
But that's what, in the top 10?
5.
1, 2, there's 5 in the top 10 next year.
Yep.
Also really like because I know someone set the over under, and I saw a tweet from McShay saying, I took the under, but it's going to be close. And the over under was 6.5 for first round quarterbacks next year, because it's a much deeper class. Whereas this year we had 1 in 70.
Yeah.
You could have, 6 in 30, or 5 in 10.
Yeah.
Whew, starting to sound like baseball. A 5 in 10 guy. You probably don't know what that is, do you? Well, you might be. You know baseball. A 5-10 guy.
Yeah.
10 years in the league, 5 with the same club. You get an automatic no trade clause. Okay.
Yep.
Just checking.
Yeah. No, we're good. Couple other names here at the quarterback position I'd keep an eye on too. Cam Rising from Utah. I think he maybe is a little bit better college than NFL, but he had a pretty good Rose Bowl, good Pac-12 championship as well. So standing out and staying in Utah also. Jaron Hall. I know he's a little bit older, but man, he plays the quarterback position like a shortstop, where it's a lot of the arm angle stuff and keeping velocity off different platforms, which I think is very much a need in today's NFL. You cannot be static with how many moving pockets there are and just how often you're going to be having to deal with pressure. So, Patrick Mahomes kind of changed the game there. Sometimes it's a little bit erratic, but that's where it's at. And where it's also at, Mark Schrader coming in. Good morning. Good morning to you, Mark. Also, always awesome to have you join us. Hope things are well down in the state of Texas. And hopefully you're not getting sunned out down there. I think a lot of the country right now is like 90 degrees or something. It's still freezing cold up here in Seattle.
We've got a nice happy medium here in Georgia. Wake up, it's 55, hit the heat of the day, it's about 80. Those are just fine. May, springtime, and I've told you this story before. I hate the winters here. I've always hated them. 38 to 42 degrees and raining. It's the worst. And I rode a motorcycle exclusively for a year. So, cold rain on a motorcycle is just absolutely miserable. I'm like, I would just as soon as snow. I like the snow better than the rain. At least it brushes off you. It looks good. It's prettier than, and the rain, cold rain's just the worst. So I lived in New Jersey working out of Manhattan, and my first year up there, January hits and it snows. I'm like, see, this is what I'm talking about. I love it. And then April and May hit and it was 35 degrees and raining. I'm like, oh, I get it now. Your spring sucks. So you don't miss 30s and rain. You just move it into springtime. This sucks. So April and May are pretty nice down here in the South. It starts getting really hot around the 4th of July.
And we are on about our 5th month of 30s, 40s, and rain here in Seattle. So it's been rough, but luckily the rain here is just barely spitting. It's fine. We'll get by.
So getting back to the mock draft from Todd McShay and how it ties into the power rankings,
Can
that
you tell me who
because
went
he's got
four,
him picking
real quick?
fifth, and one of the first power rankings that came out was Dan Hansis of NFL.com did his post draft power rankings last week, and there's always optimism after the draft. Okay, I really like this guy, or this guy's going to help, and you kind of forget that everybody drafted, everybody's getting new guys. So you kind of have to try and look and take everything in perspective, because someone came, and I appreciate y'all coming in after the fact and watching this and putting in comments. I'm going to answer them.
Mhm.
And saying, hey, it was 7 wins last year. I expect 10 this year. I want to see improvement. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. Like, it was 7, but it was, some skinnier teeth victories and one score games. And frankly, statistically, you went backwards everywhere else from 2020 to 2021. Time of possession, turnovers, offense, defense, sacks. I mean, you name it, just about every single score except the wins, which is the most important, obviously, but just virtually every single statistic last year was worse than it was in 2020. And the
Yeah.
roster hasn't gotten better for my money. I think there's been a couple of improvements. Wide receiver 1 should be better. Drake London should be better, I think, than probably Russell Gage.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I think he should be better. Russell Gage is now what would he get, about 12, 14 million? He got paid pretty well to go down to Tampa. He's a
Yeah.
solid guy, but he's a 3. Drake London should be a legit 1 or 2 right away. And Kyle Pitts, they should complement each other well. And then Casey Hayward, the corner, is a very good upgrade over Fabian Moreau. After that, I've got questions. I do. We'll see. Is Troy Anderson going to step in and be an improvement over Foye Oluokun?
Maybe not year 1.
Yeah, maybe not year 1. Just as far as the reads, I mean, he had almost 200 tackles.
Yeah.
Foye did.
Yeah.
Now, Troy Anderson, he's bigger and he's faster, considerably bigger and faster.
Yeah.
But, is he going to be a better football player that early?
And the other thing
Lorenzo
is
Carter over Dante Fowler?
Yeah.
Maybe not. You still haven't done anything at the other defensive line position or nose guard. You haven't done anything on the offensive line. You lost your quarterback. That's kind of a big one that I haven't even gotten to yet. You lost your quarterback. So yeah, if you think they were fortunate to go 7-10 last year, and Christopher Howell comes in, he says, yeah, Rashaan Evans. And Rashaan Evans was coming in on a 1-year, about $2 million deal, where Foye just got $15 million to go to the Jags. Now that's bad. I think that's bad money for Jacksonville. But is the trio of Rashaan and a combination of Rashaan and Anderson better than what you got from Foye? And does Deion Jones improve? Deion Jones has to play better this year, second year in the system. You haven't improved at safety yet. So you're bringing one guy back and you're hoping on Richie Grant making a big leap. So if you think the team was fairly fortunate to go 7-10 last year and it could revert back to the mean a little bit, and you're thinking 5 wins, maybe, just if you stood pat. But I don't think the roster has improved from this year to last year, at least not yet.
It's not improved in the short-term focus. I definitely think this draft that you just had greatly improves them long-term, but that's much more, 2023, 2024
Right.
and beyond versus the 2022 season. And I think the biggest thing that's going to be a step back, the defense is still going to be, I think, pretty poor overall. I think AJ Terrell is a stud. I mean, you could argue that he's the most valuable cornerback in football. Like, if there was a redraft right now because of his age and everything, he could be the first one off the board. I mean, he's that good. But outside of him, it's a lot of unknowns, a lot of youth or kind of barely rosterable, replaceable players, if you will. So defense is going to be poor. It was the 4th worst defense in football last year, according to EPA per play, when you turn on the sliders to get rid of garbage time. So that's a poor defense. They should be a little bit better getting after the pass rusher, even though, Ebiketie and Malone might be, borderline starters year 1, but still the defense.
And as I've said, Nick, it'd be almost impossible, literally almost impossibly worse than Stephen Means.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't survive, but if, let's say, I could play 30 snaps a game rushing the passer. I'd like to think even a blown assignment, I could get to the quarterback once.
Yeah.
One time. I mean, he had 2 quarterback hits in 16 games last year. I think he missed one game.
It's
2.
laughably bad.
And none after week 3.
Yeah.
And he went like 12 games without, so much as bothering the quarterback. That's almost impossible, man.
It really is.
It's like trying to get I got a 0 on the SAT. That's as hard to do as getting a perfect score because you have to know all the answers because you get points for not answering.
Yep.
In order to miss everything, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. It's tough. And to answer the original point here, which I was getting to, Foye Oluokun, you could have better linebacker play from the likes of Troy Anderson, Deion Jones, and Rashaan Evans this season, and still not accumulate the tackles that Oluokun did. And hopefully you don't, because I think tackles themselves is an accumulation stat that doesn't always signify great linebacker play. I think we're a little bit antiquated about if they get a lot of tackles, that means they're great. Not
but are they making
necessarily.
plays?
Yeah, Micah Kaiser led the league in tackles a few years ago, and then like college football in tackles. It's because situationally he was funneled the football,
right,
and he had an easy assignment, and he did it, to his credit. But he's been a replaceable player, so I think the tackles is a little bit overrated. And Oluokun himself getting a lot of those tackles, I think, speaks as much to how much he was having to clean up because of the issues in front of him as it was his play, and he got paid for it, no doubt. But I don't think he deserved what he got exactly.
And don't get me wrong, Oluokun did have some big plays. He had he had a couple interceptions that were game changers, literally, and he was a good player for the Falcons. So I'm not ready to say there's no way I would have paid him what the Jaguars paid him. No way. No way.
Yeah, let me redact.
But he was a good player.
Yeah, and deserve is a very debatable thing. You deserve what anybody thinks you're worth. So good for him, especially was he an undrafted free agent or very small, very late draft pick. So for him to go out there and get that money, amazing. But top 3 linebacker pay for somebody who was doing a lot of cleanup tackling, I don't know, man. I don't know.
He's about 210 pounds. He's so light. I mean, we think Deion Jones is light. Nakobe Dean is light. It's like Nakobe Dean's got 20 pounds on the Atlanta starting inside linebackers in a 3-4.
Yeah.
Those guys need to be big. Your linebackers they need to be jumbo size. So again, and where I'm going with this is a long way of coming around to saying that Dan's on NFL.com, he's got the Falcons as 29th out of 32 teams in the power rankings, and they're down after the draft. They've moved down after the draft, and part of that is because all the reasons I've said I didn't want a wide receiver. A wide receiver doesn't help you when you can't block and you've got questions at quarterback. It's not, again, as Nick said just a few moments ago, I think you're better off for the long term. And if Drake London can be that guy, it's just, I wonder if, are you going to have so many problems with your offensive line and quarterback for the next 2 years that you're into year 3 before you can even start scratching the surface of what a Drake London can do. And that starts feeling like a wasted pick to me. You start hearing the B word. Then, it's like, hey, my number 1 pick's got 40 catches and 650 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yay. I got that from, I can get that from Olamide Zaccheaus. That's not as exciting to me as, maybe one of the edge guys or, a safety that you can see flying around and making plays on defense where you've got more of an ability to impact the game as an individual than you do as a wide receiver where it's again, what good is my wide receiver if my quarterback can't throw because he's either not that good or he's constantly on his back and he's in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I guess I will say the thing about Drake London, keep coming around to it, is the way the board fell, the Falcons did lean heavily into positional value, which I give them props for. Wide receiver, given what the market is doing right now, given what these guys are getting paid, given how they were snatched off the board like hotcakes, he doesn't have to be as good amongst his peers as, say, a Jordan Davis or a Kyle Hamilton, who essentially have to end up, perennial all-pro level players to be positive returns on investment, given where they went in the draft. So that's it. That's good for the Falcons. Also, it might be used to lure a quarterback to Atlanta. If Mariota's not the guy, you have the Denver blueprint this year where they set up the roster around the quarterback and made it an attractive destination. Hey, we're going to pay you a lot of money. You're going to have say here. The owner is going to do it they can to help you, and you can throw to height, weight, speed, length monsters in the likes of Kyle Pitts and Drake London. So Definitely something to consider here. And we got Damsky coming in here saying Atlanta played a 4-3 under most of the season, not a 3-4. I mean, yeah, okay. That's a little bit of nuance there, but you're absolutely right. The five guys along the defensive line,
Mhm.
one of them being, what is it? I can't remember what they call it in the Atlanta style or the Seattle style defense. But yeah, 4-3 under, 3-4. Teams are playing more nickel than anything, and they're using a multi-front often anyway. So that's fine. And Foye Oluokun playing 240 now. He was 220 coming out, but he confirmed that last season. Foye's a great player on a bad defense. He was a very good player
He was a very good
for them
player. He
last
didn't
year.
lead the tackles for nothing
Yep.
without a lot of help in front of him. That's what we're saying. Would I have paid him $15 million a year? No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have. I could see where he was going. I could see that he was gone. I didn't regret him. Hey, good for you, Foye. I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you. Good luck in Jacksonville. That's how I would. That's what I did say. When I saw that deal. So again, I don't think you can go in and just say that Troy Anderson can come in, even though he's got more tools, can come in and make your team better, or Rashawn Evans than what Foye Oluokun was last year. Right? I think we're on the same page here. He was listed 215 last year. He's listed 229 right now. And what he's listed, what he plays at, who knows? The point is he's a little bit undersized if he's anywhere in between those numbers. And Nakobe Dean was getting knocked for being 229. He was 229 at the combine, and people were talking about him being undersized. So, yeah, Damsky, I agree. I'm all for Atlanta players getting paid, but I'm glad Atlanta didn't pay that. Yeah, I was thinking 6 to 8, maybe. Then you consider it. Maybe you get lucky and Cordero Patterson comes out and says, F the money. This is where I want to be. But Cordero has slogged in this league for years before finding a spot where he was just the man and had a breakout season at 31 years old. And he's still getting paid plenty of money. Foye hasn't made any money, and he's already 5 years in the league, and he's still just 26. Get your money, dude. I'm happy for you. I really am.
Yeah. No, absolutely. He should be. He should have a good time there in Jacksonville. I'm really curious to see how the linebacker play plays out there.
They're going to play a 3-5-3.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be an interesting one there.
They put a ton of money into the linebacker position and resources this year,
which I kind of get. I mean, God, don't let Ethan close your ears. But playing in the AFC South, they have Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. You probably need to be stout at the linebacker spot to handle those guys, and you're going to be playing more base defenses than probably almost any other division in football. So definitely something to consider there. And I think the big thing with the Falcons, are we talking about the Falcons defense in general? Let me pull this up here. Oh, I can't share my. Oh, wait, can I? Yes, I can. I think it's much more interesting to look at the coverage schemes overall than anything else. And we got the Falcons here. Let me know if you can see that. Oop, can you pull that up? There we go.
Yep.
So yeah, the big thing here with the Falcons is the coverages here, and really the big need to get a little bit more diverse. This is partly working with limited resources on the defensive side of the ball, but playing, God, what is it? 3 times as much cover 2 as any other team in the NFL, playing almost no cover 4, cover 6, a little bit more cover 1, but it's a cover 2 team, and that's one of the reasons that, not to disparage AJ Terrell, but his coverage variety, I think, was a little bit limited. Last season, granted, he had no pass rush, which makes it harder for him, and
he had no pass rush and nobody behind him. He had a couple of journeyman safeties, an awful corner on the other side. His slot corner got hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Dean Peace for them being able to keep the score. That was their entire, we call it suffer ball. That was their entire MO last year, was let's do what we can to slog this thing down and keep it close. And maybe we can get, a drive at the end, and we got a great field goal kicker.
Yeah.
Because you look at the personnel last year and it was just dreadful.
Yeah.
I mean, it was you look at defense, I've said this before, there was, as far as plus starters on the defensive side of the ball, it was Foye, it was Grady, it was Terrell.
Yeah.
That's it.
Not great.
Everybody else was at best an okay NFL player. Dante Fowler, okay. Steven Means, no. God, no. Fabian Moreau was terrible.
Yeah.
The two safeties, one of them's come back, and I'm already
Richie
blanked on
Grant.
their names. Richie Grant was a little bit of a disappointment coming in, especially for an older guy. He needs to make a big step up for a guy that was, a second round pick at safety.
Yeah.
So, and Dempsey coming in here saying safety was our biggest issue. Boy, Kyle Hamilton would have been nice. Who'd have thought
Yeah.
of that? Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted Kyle Hamilton in that pick. Just again, because one, the hometown thing, a little bit more of the heart than the head. Yes, I know it's not a valuable position at the safety compared, but if you get a game changer, that's value. He could be a game changer. And it's so much easier to impact a game on defense as an individual. But yeah, I thought so too. And Devontae coming in saying good morning. Good morning, Devontae. Thanks for checking in on Facebook. Glad you're here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Devontae. We appreciate you. And good morning to you as well. Happy Hump Day. Yeah. The thing about the Falcons defense and AJ Terrell in general, again, he did really well. But because of that cover 2 scheme, he was allowed to be a little bit more trigger happy downhill, make plays on the football because coverage wise, he always, in theory, on the play design, had help behind him. It's not the cover 4 where not only are you responsible for triggering downhill on your side of the field, but you have to carry the route stem the entire way down the field vertically as well. So a little bit easier job as far as what he's asked. Killed it last year. I'm curious to see if Pease is going to have a little bit more variety in his coverages next year. Personnel still not good, so it'd be
yeah, but you are better at that other corner, so that's an improvement, and hopefully, maybe Lorenzo Carter can get a little bit more consistent pressure than Dante Fowler. That'll help. You got two rookie edge guys that one-legged should be better than what Steven Means was able to do last year. You got 2 rookies that played a lot. Ade Ogundeji. And then the big kid from Texas, I'm blanking on his name already too. On the defensive line, they were later round picks that played more than you wanted them to. Hopefully, they can take a step up. So you got a lot of guys, and then on the offensive side of the ball. But where I'm going with this is 29th in the NFL power rankings is fair. It is. It's fair. So you should be looking at a top 5 pick next year. Yeah. And in this case, Todd McShay had the Falcons taking Jalen Carter, defensive lineman from Georgia, which would be, for a guy who loves the trenches, that'd be great. But I also like having competent quarterback play. And are you going to get it in 2022, 2023?
That's the kicker, right? That's the kicker. Kenneth coming in, KB82, hope you're doing well, says, does linebacker, I guess edge rusher, Christopher Allen from Alabama have a chance to make the Denver team? Absolutely. Follow the money. They gave him a big college free agent contract. He just got to stay healthy. But I think this might seem sacrilegious last year to what we saw last year, but I think he's got just as good a chance to beat out, not just as good a chance, but he has a chance to beat out Jonathan Cooper, who was a really good 7th round pick last year that fell because of a medical condition. Christopher Allen as well. That game last year against Miami, week 1, he was dominant. He absolutely destroyed them before suffering that foot injury. So definitely, I'm excited to see what he can do. Hoping he can stay healthy. Ideally, Denver can stash him this season. Nobody takes him. Nobody can see him. And then he gets a chance, dice roll in 2023. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I think you can protect some of those guys as well. You can protect a couple guys. You got to maybe pay them. I don't know the rules, but you can protect somebody on your practice squad or sign them up if you have to. And Taquan Graham, that was the guy whose name I was blanking on. He played a lot more than you would have liked him to I think he was a 4th or 5th round pick out of Texas, 300, knocking on the door, 300 pounds. And then Ogundeji was out of Notre Dame, who played a lot more. He started most of the games, actually.
Yeah, I think they were both 5th round picks.
Yeah, he started a lot. And you didn't want him to. It's like they one of the reasons you weren't good, it's a double-edged sword. It's which way do you want to go with this? Was it a good pick because they played, or not because you were bad because they played? I mean, you don't want them to have to play. That you got a starter out of those picks is good, but you didn't want them to be starters. They weren't ready. They weren't good starters. They could be hella backups, though, as they continue to improve. Mark Schrader coming in saying just because we love you, Mark. So thank you so much for the support. You and Kenneth helping to keep the lights on, keep my forehead nice and shiny, and maybe get an upgrade on the computer. I've been getting the itch. There's nothing wrong with this one, but the one my daughter uses upstairs is one of my older ones, and I watch her play games and watch the lag, and I'm like, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies. I was an IT manager in a former life, like long time ago. So I like the toys. So thank you very much for sure.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate it. You're helping Nick Kendall's moving funds because I am 30 years old. I'm a man now, and like I've gotten past the age where friends, hey, come over and help move all my crap. And here's some pizza and beer. That's okay when you're like in college or you're young bachelor pad in like an apartment or something. Not when you're moving house to house. So yeah, nope. Thank you very much for helping with that. That'll be expensive when the time comes. Biggie Bronco says, has any more of the NFL schedule leaked out? Well, I woke up at 6:10 and I was live at 6:30. So if it has, I have not seen it yet. Enough time to feed the dog and get my coffee going, but and get my mind right for the show. But if it has, somebody in the chat can let us know. But I have not seen anything, and I'm just as fine waiting until tomorrow. Let me know tomorrow. Maybe I would like to know it just because I would really love to go to the Denver at Seattle game, and I hope it doesn't fall on a wedding day, but we'll see.
So Damsky comes in and says, Steven Means was a starter, dog. We were bad. How bad were we? This bad. This bad. Again, this is almost impossible. I mean, literally almost impossible. The man started, every time he was in there, he started 8, and that looks like 6. So he started 14 games. 14 games. He had 2 quarterback hits. Both of them came against the Jets in week 5.
Yeah.
So in 13 of the 14 games he played and started, where he played over 70% of the defensive snaps, closer to 80, he didn't have a quarterback hit. He had 2 tackles for loss. Two tackles for loss the whole season. In week 3 against the Giants and week 4 against Washington.
Yeah.
That's it. The rest of the season, no tackles for loss. So you can already pretty much figure out how many sacks he had. None.
Yeah.
0. So your starter at edge, one of the highest paid, most important positions on the entire defense, especially in a 3-4, had 24 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits, did not get in the backfield to make a play after week 5.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Not great.
When I say it's almost impossible, this isn't hyperbole. That is statistically almost impossible. You watch it all the time. You watch a blown assignment all the time, and a guy walks in and he has a walk-in tackle for loss.
Yeah.
Once. That didn't happen one time in 10 weeks. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
no offense to Steven Means. I'm sure you're a great guy and you work hard. It's not his fault that he was the best option, but it can't get any worse. It cannot get worse than that.
You make me nervous saying that.
It can't. You could play with 10 and get the same level of production.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great. To be somewhat fair to Steven Means, and this is something also that I'm curious to see the usage with, Carter, that you just signed from the Giants.
Lorenzo Carter, former Georgia guy.
Yep, I was like, we just talked about Jalen Carter from Georgia. That's not it. Don't say Jalen Carter, Nick. That's what my brain kept saying. Lorenzo Carter, height, weight, speed.
Lorenzo was a Norcross kid, I believe. I watched him, and he was one of those 6'6", 220-pound kids that bounced up and down like a pogo stick when he was in high school.
Yeah.
Just like, whoa. Watch him play basketball. What an athlete.
Yeah. Probably should have been a tight end or a wide receiver, but I digress. Lorenzo Carter.
Doesn't happen in the South, dude. Big and fast, they put you on defense.
That makes sense.
At least, he's already about 10 years in. So, 10 years ago from high school.
But bringing it back around to Steven Means, the Falcons did use him on almost 100 coverage reps last season compared to 300 pass rush reps. So the raw data looks bad for Means because of his usage somewhat as well. Now, granted, it was not great, but this is full circle coming to Lorenzo Carter, who I think is a great jack backer type who can drop into coverage when you need to as well. Very competent in that way. And coming back to Broncos as well, simulated pressures. Who's coming, who's going. Having somebody like Lorenzo Carter on edge, who is just as good, I think, dropping in space as he is pass rushing, is a really valuable tool in what today's NFL defenses are doing to try to hide where the pressure is coming from, sending 4 without making it the static 4 every time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not Steven Means' fault. I don't blame a guy. It's not like he wasn't out there not trying. I don't blame somebody for not being good enough. He wasn't good enough. That's not his fault. That's the organization's fault for not being able to make an upgrade there.
Yeah.
And failing to plan. If a player is out there giving it his all, I will not criticize him other than just say, hey, he's not good enough. And he wasn't good enough. But I'm not going to knock him as a person, as a player, an effort, attitude, anything like that. Just, hey, he wasn't good enough. James, appreciate you being in. Says here late, but good morning, Nick and Scott. Glad you're here. Appreciate you being here. We're going to get out of here in just a couple of minutes. Just kind of wanted to pull this thing full circle. We're talking about the show and how at the top of the show, the mock draft, Todd McShay's first mock draft had Jalen Carter going 5 overall, and how that ties into the previous power rankings of 29. And I just kind of want to set expectations going in, because my friend, he's like, why do so many people think that this Drake London pick is such a good pick? It's like, well, they need a receiver. Yeah, obviously they had needs everywhere. But again, just because they lost somebody that they had doesn't mean he immediately needed to be replaced, because there were several spots where they didn't have anybody. And that was pretty much your entire front 5 in a 3-4, your 2 edge guys and your defensive lineman outside of Grady Jarrett. So any one of those picks would have been a fit. I'm going to be real interested in the quarterback position this year, Nick.
Yep.
How does Desmond Ridder look during preseason? And will it be enough that you can pass on a quarterback in the 2023 draft?
It really depends on what quarterback's available to you, but timeline-wise and where you are going to be roster-wise as well, you took a calculated dice roll on Desmond Ridder, and even if he just ends up a good backup, guess what? That's a fine return on investment with that pick, especially considering the way people rave about Desmond Ridder's competitiveness, intelligence, maturity, et cetera, et cetera. That's fine. That's a great calculated risk there, as long as you're not all in on a 3rd-round pick. Now, when there are fans, a year from now, which there will be, saying that, the Falcons don't have to take a quarterback. We saw 2 games of Desmond Ridder, and he looked okay.
Remember how good he looked in that throw he had in the preseason?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
6'3", 211, 4.52. You can find ways to get that on the field. I mean, similarly, they found ways to get Felipe Franks on the field. Felipe Franks might be a better tight end than quarterback in the NFL. He's a big, good athlete. You can use some RPO options for Ridder.
Yep, absolutely. And your mic just went a little bit static and quick there.
Yeah, I was launching I wonder if that had to do with me launching my Excel spreadsheet that I wanted to look up as it was happening.
Probably. I'm sure that's what it was. Processing.
That's it. I'm ordering a new computer today.
That's it. No more. It will be interesting.
Had enough.
But yeah, Desmond Ridder, I mean, we saw it a week ago, I think, on one of these shows where somebody came in at the chat at the very end saying like, oh man, we have Ridder now. Why would you waste a pick on a quarterback? It's like, oh no, it's already starting. Take the lessons from what we just saw in Broncos country, where if you don't know emphatically that you have your quarterback, you should still be hunting. And I'm guessing it would take the odds of Desmond Ridder having a year this season to the point with this roster where you would not consider a quarterback next season is exponentially low, because you're building on top of, it's not just what he does this year in Atlanta, it's what he did in college as well. It's where he was drafted. So need to be hunting for that quarterback. And worst case scenario, drafting another guy is you deal the surplus. So I don't think you should definitely be in the quarterback hunt next season, especially with that class and where the roster is going to be for the Falcons as well. Young team, they can spend money around that quarterback as well. Kind of do what the Jets did. It's not as much like what the 49ers have done or other quarterback like Mac Jones around the Patriots, but more of the Jets, where this team is still going to be bad. And guess what? The roster is still going to be bad probably a year from now, but you can get that quarterback in there. And then with the draft capital you have, the cap that you have as well, you can surround that quarterback to isolate the variable, give him the best chance possible, give yourself the best evaluation possible to analyze that guy to see if he is the dude or not.
Yeah, well said. It'll be interesting to see how the season starts going and how the schedule rolls out. The Falcons had a pretty easy schedule last year and turned it into 7 wins. I honestly don't want them to be 7-10 again. Either go 10-7 or better, or tank it, embrace the tank. You're coming out of, they're going to have so much money, relatively speaking, in 2023 compared to what they had. I mean, you got $60 million in dead money coming off the books in 2022.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan's contract gone. Julio Jones' contract is gone. The rebuild can officially begin. It started. You've started specking out places. You're, maybe clearing the field a little bit, but you're starting to pour the foundation next year. So, it should be really interesting to watch and see if these quarterbacks, because again, those are the guys that get a lot of the early hype if they start living up to the hype in college. Again, Spencer Rattler was the number 1 overall pick. Bo Nix was the number 1 overall pick. Those guys didn't make it out of college. Last year, it was pretty easy to see Bo Nix wasn't going to. Bo Nix is a Senior Bowl guy though this year, so get a good look at him. Bo Nix, former Auburn guy, and one of the reasons why Malik Willis went to Liberty,
Yeah.
because he, as a legacy and a 5-star recruit, Malik Willis didn't like his chances of beating that guy out, which kind of ties us back into the conversation we had yesterday, Nick, about Greg Dulcich, a former walk-on. You know, the walk-ons, if you make it out of your walk-on chance in order to play, you've earned it. You've had to be tough mentally, because the guys on scholarship, the first-round picks, all of those guys are going to get 10 times more opportunities than you're going to get to show yourself.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. And man, we haven't even talked about this yet. Maybe this is too much of dabbing our toes into college football, but the have you been following the Jordan
This
Addison
is the
stuff?
South, dude.
Yeah.
This is a team in the South. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of move-ins here, but
Yeah.
most people have a team here, a college team in the South.
Do you have opinions on the Jordan Addison stuff going on? Are you aware of that
No,
stuff?
I haven't paid any attention to it.
Okay, I think he was mocked in McShay's 2023 mock top 10. Jordan Addison was a wide receiver from Pittsburgh. Sounds like USC is ready to give him, $3 million and his own house somewhere in South Beach land to get him down there. But Texas is coming after him pretty hard too. So
number 7 to the Bears. Yeah, he
Jordan Addison
entered
player.
the transfer portal, so we'll end up suiting up. It's still up in the air. He was among the best receivers in college football last season with 100 catches, 69 yards, 17 touchdowns. The Bears opted to wait until round 3 to draft a receiver and still need a legitimate outside starter opposite Darnell Mooney. Jordan Addison. So is this what prompted the Aaron Taylor rant?
Probably.
Because a USC guys, the Notre Dame guys upset. That USC has jumped into the portal again. The NCAA is a sham. I kind of joke with with the guys we work with. One of my bosses for a long time was an Iowa guy, lived out in California, and the Pac-12 guys and the Big Ten guys, they still like to fool themselves into thinking that they're playing by some morally higher standard than everybody else.
At Iowa, we are.
The SEC is basically, for years, they've just given up the facade. That we've given up the facade that this is anything but what it is, which is a billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
Now, does it need to be attached to colleges anymore? That's a different discussion. But this is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah, and the other thing it's gonna be really interesting to see how this NIL deal changes the draft landscape, because there's going to be college players who should
stay in longer.
Will stay. Yes, they will.
What am I coming 100%. Out for?
Yep.
What am I coming out for?
Early declarations. I think it'll also change the landscape for obviously you're going to get more money at Nebraska, but why would I want to get more money at Nebraska if I could be getting the same money living in Southern California, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry to disparage on Nebraska. I got to get it in there when I can. Ethan coming in.
Iowa guy. That's everybody from north of Virginia thinks that Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia are all the same thing. I'm like, that's okay. We think of everything north of Virginia as the Northeast. Yeah. So, all y'all Yankees are the same thing to us at that point. Iowa, Nebraska, how would we know the difference if there wasn't a state sign as we were driving across it?
I gotta stand up for my state a little bit here, specifically on the east side. Beautiful granite bluffs carved out by the Mississippi and the rivers.
This country's gorgeous. If you've never driven the country, do it. I've done it twice. I've done it when I moved. I drove. I've been all over the place doing scouting. I ran national events. So I've been all over this country, everywhere except Boston. It's the only big city I haven't been to.
Yeah.
Is Boston.
Ethan.
Drive the country. It's absolutely gorgeous. I did it when I moved out to California, and I did it. I drove back both times with my dogs. And Ethan coming in to close us out here. He says, for Scott's Computer Fund, did I miss the sponsor promotion? I forgot it. I did. I forgot it. Ryan Kennedy Homes, everybody. Hit Ryan Kennedy Homes. It's a hot market down here in the South, especially on days like this. The houses aren't even hitting the market, so you better be working with an agent. And if you want to sell, it's a great time to sell. Great show, gents. I feel like the Falcons are my second favorite team watching this weekly. Take care, everyone. When you know the players, it makes it more fun. So I've said before, you root for the names on the back of the jerseys as much as you do on the front as you get more into this. So as you know the players, you end up rooting for guys. You end up rooting for the guys. I'll be fans of certain players. I'll be interested to see how Foye does. I want him to do well in Jacksonville. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching while he was here. I didn't always root for Julio Jones, Tennessee. I'll tell you that much so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a question here from it was Damsky asking what was that coverage chart that you found, Nick, from PFF Elite? There's a website that has it. It's a database.
Go ahead and drop it in the chat.
I can't answer on the chat.
Oh, yeah, you can.
I can't.
No, you can't. Put it in the private chat, and I'll put it in there.
I was like, I don't think
Luke Wright asked, have you been to Salt Lake City? Yes, I have. I looked at like the top 50 media markets in the United States, and I've been to like 48 of those cities except Boston. Is about the only one that I haven't been to. So with all the high school recruiting stuff that I did, running different events and family all over the place, and basically just traveling, I've been most of the medium to large cities in the country. I've not been to the Dakotas. I'd love to.
Black Hills are pretty,
and that's about it. And I haven't been past Connecticut going that way, so I haven't been to Maine either. So Maine or Boston. Other than that, I've been around. I've been around. Rode hard and put up wet. That's why I look like this.
Yeah, that's well, gonna get on out here. I just dropped the chat or dropped it for Scott there. So
it's in there for you.
It's just a database that has a bunch of the from PFF's Ryan Weissman. So it is a PFF fed data set, but the actual projection is a different website of the data there. So that one's a lot of fun. You can kind of tool around with stuff. They have to talk about the EPA per play with different coverages, personnel usage, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of good, fun, interesting data there. So you can play around with that one and get a good understanding of some things. Granted, they don't have all the nuance sometimes, and they don't like the personnel usage. If you are like a team that uses 3 defensive linemen versus 2 interior defensive linemen, they're not going to do a very good job of putting you against the average because it's kind of sort of against everybody. You'll see it if you mess around with it, but a lot of fun today too. Talking 2023 draft. I'm going to have to live vicariously through you Falcons fans with first and second round draft picks this upcoming season, given the Broncos don't have any, but we'll make that trade every time here in Denver to get a top 10 quarterback. So feeling good, feeling excited, and thanks to everybody joining in today. Shout out to Ethan. Don't clip that linebacker praise I gave earlier. Let's pretend that didn't happen.
And Muma, it's a reflex. So thanks to our super chat superstars, Kenneth kicking us off, Mark Schrader coming in, and Ethan closing us out. 1, 2, 3, 3 strikes. We're out of here, guys. Appreciate you being here. We'll see you tomorrow on Broncos for Breakfast on Mile High Huddle. We'll be talking a little bit more Denver Broncos, maybe get into some early draft stuff. We'll see. And appreciate y'all being here, and we will see you next time.